Have you ever just had that feeling deep down, that nagging sense that there's got to be more to life than, well, this? Today we're diving into the incredible story of Joan, a young American woman who felt that exact same pull. Her search for meaning took her from the chaotic 1960s on a journey that didn't just change her life, it ended up building a bridge between two completely different worlds. This is a story about the universal hunt for something real. So, here's how we're going to walk through her life. We'll look at 5 key chapters, starting with her restless heart, then the epic journey to find her teacher, and how she became the person to bring his message to the West. Then we'll see her steering a global movement, and finally reflecting on it all with a lifetime of wisdom.
Okay, so to really get Joan, you have to understand the world she was so desperate to get away from. Her story really begins with this deep, profound sense of unease.
So, this is Joan, and her story doesn't start with a plan or a destination. Nope. It starts with that gut feeling, that unshakable sense that there had to be something more authentic out there than what she was seeing all around her. You know, the late 1960s have been described as a time of serious spiritual malaise. For Joan, and so many people her age, the whole American dream just felt hollow. It left this huge void inside that nothing seemed to fill.
I mean, just think about everything that was happening all at once. You've got the dark cloud of the Vietnam War, a whole generation questioning every single authority figure, and these massive social movements just turning society upside down. And out of all that chaos came this powerful collective hunger for something real, something you could actually believe in.
Now for Joan, this feeling wasn't just some vague idea she'd think about. No way. It was a call to action. It literally propelled her out into the world on a physical journey that would perfectly mirror her inner search.
So she takes off on the famous hippie trail. And this was so much more than a backpacking trip. It was a modern-day pilgrimage. As she moved from Europe through the chaotic, beautiful markets of the Middle East, every step was like shedding a layer of her old self. And then, in Afghanistan, something happened that changed her course completely. Just picture it. She's in some small, dusty restaurant, and she strikes up a conversation with other travelers. And they start telling her about this spiritual teacher over in India who just so happens to be a 12-year-old boy named Prem Rawat. That one conversation was like a lightning bolt. It suddenly gave her entire quest a sharp, urgent focus. So she makes her way to Tehran, India in 1970, and she finally comes face to face with this young teacher. He's just sitting on a porch, and with one simple, incredibly direct question, he cuts right through all her searching, all her anxiety. And her answer, which came from the absolute core of her being, was just one single word: peace. That one exchange, that was it. It laid the foundation for their entire relationship. It was immediate, it was profound, and it changed everything for her. And if she had any lingering doubts, they were blown away a few months later. She was in Delhi, and she saw him declare to this huge crowd that his goal was to establish world peace. I mean, it was such an audacious statement it became known as the peace bomb. But for Joan, she didn't hear arrogance. She heard confirmation that she had finally found that universal truth she had been looking for all along. Okay, so once she's found her answer, Joan's role just totally transforms. She's not just a seeker anymore. She becomes this vital bridge, the person who would carry this message from the East back to a Western world that was desperately searching. People have called it the magic ingredient, that direct personal connection that you can't really explain with logic. For Joan, this was the whole thing. This was what she had found, and she felt this incredible urgency to share it with everyone back home who was still stuck in that same spiritual funk.
So when she gets back to America, she doesn't just talk about it. She launches this amazing, non-stop Telegram campaign. And these weren't just polite invitations. They were fiery, passionate, desperate pleas, all designed to prove just how ready the West was for what he had to offer. And guess what? It worked. Big time. When Prem Rawat finally came to the U.S. in July 1971, the response was just insane. Joan's own words put it best. The places were so packed, it was absolute proof of that massive, untapped spiritual hunger that she knew was out there.
So things are really taking off now, and the momentum just keeps building. Because of her first-hand experience and her incredible drive, Joan quickly finds herself right at the very heart of this exploding spiritual movement in the West.
And her role gets cemented on, one of the biggest stages imaginable, the Houston Astrodome. At this massive event called Millennium 73, she was the co-MC. She became the calm, clear, public face of the movement at the absolute height of its power. Can you even imagine that kind of pressure?
But things are never that simple, are they? In the mid-70s, a really painful split happened within Prem Rawlet's own family, and it created a huge crisis of faith for a lot of his followers. But Joan, she never wavered.
In this moment, this storm really showed what her commitment was all about. Her loyalty wasn't to a family drama or some organization. It was rooted in her own direct, personal experience, that magic ingredient. She could ride out the storm because her anchor was set in something way deeper than politics or personalities.
And this brings us to the final chapter of her story, where we see this really beautiful evolution. The fiery, passionate devotion of her youth starts to soften and mature into this quiet, deeply integrated wisdom. She eventually moved to Woodstock, New York, and just immersed herself in the world of holistic healing, things like polarity therapy and crystal work. And this wasn't some career change, it was a natural extension of her path. It was all about applying those same principles of inner peace to the well-being of the entire person, mind, body, and spirit.
What's so amazing is her self-awareness when she got older. She would look back on her younger self with so much humor, even calling herself a drama queen. She totally owned her youthful intensity, but with a kind of grace that showed just how much she had grown.
And this, right here, is the absolute core of her story. She said that despite all the changes, the countries, the drama, her own personal evolution, that one essential feeling, that connection she first felt on that porch in India, it never, ever changed. It was constant, timeless.
And that really just leaves us with a question for ourselves, doesn't it? Joan's journey from a lost seeker to a wise woman kind of holds a mirror up to our own lives. Through all the chaos, all the growth, all the ups and downs, what's the one core truth, that one feeling of the heart that has stayed constant for you?